at a time I was making about $25 an hour. This isn't a mountain. So imagine this line is the timeline of your career. One method called manage. 4 pages long. And this method would also take 5 or 6 parameters. And look, I get it. You want to set your own hours, you want to choose your own clients, you want to diversify your income, you even want to do your own taxes. But perhaps most importantly, you don't want to be the commuter. You want to be able to work from anywhere. I spent quite a lot of time freelancing actually, and recently on the Discord server I've been speaking with a lot of people about their freelancing experience, so I was thinking I could share mine and maybe tell you about the clients that I had and the kind of pay that I was able to get, so let's get started. Somehow I stumbled upon this website called Odesk and I saw people making like $5 here, $10 there, and I thought, oh my god, well, this is my chance. On my profile I put a few hobby projects that I was working on and I was really hoping that I would get a job. But I'm not gonna lie, it took a very long time. Eventually I actually did land my first job, and I believe it's because of something that I put in my profile. So let me tell you about that. Partially because I didn't have anything else to put there, but also maybe it was a lucky coincidence. I put I was good at math, which was true, but it just so happened that there was one guy who needed something built. I think it was like JavaScript charts, and it turned out that he interviewed quite a few people for that job, but they didn't really have the skills, mathematically speaking, to do what he was looking for. So this is the first lesson that I learned. Like, even though math wasn't really relevant to beginner JavaScript, HTML and CSS jobs, it was less common. And you know, this really does help if you're trying to stand out from everybody else. So eventually I graduated from HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and I started working with Ruby on Rails, and at a time I was making about $25 an hour. But I have to tell you one story. You know, one time the company that I was working for organized a photo shoot, and they invited me over, which was very nice. But then, as I was standing next to the coffee machine, I overheard a conversation. It was the photographer guy, and he was handing over the invoice to my boss for his own work, and he said something like, okay, that was 4 hours times $75 an hour, that would be $300. And I was like, brother, I made the product that is paying for that work right now, and you're getting paid 3 times more per hour than me, like what is going on here? And then I realized like I was tragically underpricing my own work. I mean, now it's kind of funny, but back then I was like devastated. This isn't a mountain, this is just a huge pile of snow that they've actually collected while they were cleaning them. But anyhow, I wish I knew how to price my own work better. I would have made so much more money. This is where today's sponsor Skillshare comes into play. Skillshare is the largest online learning community, and they have resources and courses and learning paths on all kinds of topics that you can't find in other places, like photography, graphic design, business and marketing, including how to price your own work as a creative professional. And this is the one that I wish I had back in the day. What's really cool about Skillshare is there's this big community aspect, so you get to connect with your teachers and other members. And they have this concept of a learning path, so if you're unsure where to start or if you're just entering a new field, it's a collection of courses that are curated together that are designed to take you from A to Z on any given topic. For me personally, I'm actually following along this learning path about email marketing because that's one of the skills that I didn't really get to develop as a software engineer, but it's very important now that I want to do all of my side hustles. And this is definitely one of the areas that I didn't even know where to start. On Skillshare, it's incredibly easy to follow along, and the first 500 people to use my link will actually get 1 month free of Skillshare, so check it out. But alright, there is one more aspect to freelancing, and that's the question, is it even a good choice? Because you could always be working a full-time job, like in one of those office buildings. So let me actually try to draw something on the snow to illustrate my point. So imagine this line is the timeline of your career. Where on this line should you consider freelancing? And there are only 3 areas on this timeline that I want to discuss with you. In the very beginning, I do believe it is a good idea to try and freelance. So the same thing I did when I was was being broke on the university. So this one is good. Then at the very end, you actually have the ability, when you have a lot of experience, to command a very high rate. So one time I actually met a senior C++ developer, and he told me he was charging over $400 an hour. And so he was in this area right here. However, for the area in the middle where you're just transitioning from junior to senior, I would not recommend trying freelancing. And to explain why, I actually want to tell you another story. This is the story of Shay. But before I tell you the story of Shay, it's getting really cold here, so I think I'm gonna get going home, and when I get there, I'm gonna tell you the story. Look at this, it's -11. So, who the freak is Shay? Well, I prepared a little presentation here, so let me just show you. Well, Shay was an asshole. The end. So Shay was the lead developer in a team that I was working on when I was a junior Ruby on Rails developer, and that team was made entirely out of freelancers. And so if you remember that middle area between junior and senior, this is where I actually was, and so I was trying to grow and learn. And actually, whenever I did something that was slightly better than Shay, he would be kind of passive-aggressive towards me, because at the end of the day, we were competing sort of for the same position, for the same job. And so let me just give you a taste of Shay's code. Shay's code, a short presentation. So Shay would make a class called manager, and in that class he would have one method called manage, and it would be like 4 pages long. And this method would also take 5 or 6 parameters, each of which was a boolean. And depending on the combination of values of those booleans, the method would do completely different things. It was out of this world crazy, and whenever I tried to refactor it, even before I really knew what refactoring meant, whenever I tried to change the code so that it's a little bit easier to work with, Shay would just go ahead and force push his commits over mine. And then on the stand-up he would be like, well, no, Marco, you need to listen to me, my code is better, you don't know, you're junior, I'm senior. And so honestly, that was a very difficult time for me, because as a junior freelancer, it's actually very hard to get a job working in a good code base, because bad code bases don't really attract really good developers. And so it's like a vicious circle where bad code bases get worse and worse over time, because people who are owners of those code bases can't hire better developers to work on them. And so as a junior, you're often going to be stuck with the likes of Shay, and it's going to be very difficult for you to progress and grow. And so my honest recommendation is, if you're a junior and you are in that employable category, I think it's wiser to find a job in an organization that actually does have a higher quality code base, and not try to freelance, because nobody will pay you to learn when you're a freelancer. They all just expect results. They expect you to just go in and work hour after hour on some shitty code base, and you will never learn that way. But if you work in an organization that actually has senior engineers, they will mentor you, because you're not directly competing with them. It's sort of a win-win scenario. And the reason it's a win-win is that a senior engineer at an organization is directly incentivized to be a good mentor. For instance, when I was mentoring some interns at Kahoot, at the end of the year on my merit process interview, I was actually told by my direct manager that interns gave really good feedback about me, and that was the main talking point on my interview. It wasn't really, oh, you did this task or that task, but it was more like, wow, you managed to help other people learn and grow into very productive engineers, and that was really key. On the flip side, if you are a senior engineer and you do land an actual senior position role as a freelancer, you will be paid really well for your expertise and experience, but you won't be paid to mentor other people. It's just the way it works. So that concludes today's presentation. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.